The 10-drop shuffle. Dave Harper's day started, as always, in the cab of his 12-tonner, parked in a yard on the outskirts of Leeds. The dashboard smelled faintly of old coffee, diesel, and last night's egg and cress sandwich. The clock read 6:12 a.m., and the sky was a dull grey, promising drizzle but delivering nothing yet. 10 drops today. 10 chances to flirt with disaster. "Right then, Daisy," Dave muttered, patting the steering wheel of his lorry. "Let's get this circus on the road." Daisy didn't answer, of course, but Dave had long since decided she appreciated the attention. His first stop was a bakery in Chapel Allerton. They needed 5 boxes of flour and some yeast. Simple enough, until he arrived to find the delivery bay blocked by a bin lorry. 2 bin men stood chatting by the truck, laughing as if they hadn't a care in the world. "All right, lads," Dave called out, leaning out of the cab. "You fancy shifting that before next Christmas, or shall I send a card?" One of them gave him a thumbs up, but it took another 10 minutes before they moved. By then, Dave had already composed a few choice words about their efficiency, but he kept them to himself. No use starting the day with an argument. By 7:45, the bakery's goods were delivered, and Dave was off to his next stop, a pub in Headingley. They needed crates of lager, soft drinks, and a couple of barrels. The pub manager, a wiry bloke called Steve, was standing outside, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. "Morning, Steve," Dave said, hoisting the first crate. "You look like a man who's had better nights." "If I hear one more hen party singing Sweet Caroline, I might pack it all in," Steve replied, running a hand through his thinning hair. Dave chuckled. "Could be worse. Could be karaoke." "Don't joke about that," Steve said darkly. The barrels were a pain to unload, and by the time Dave was back in his cab, his shirt was sticking to his back. Leeds traffic wasn't helping his mood either. Every road seemed to have a set of temporary traffic lights or a cyclist wobbling precariously close to the curb. By the 4th drop, Dave was regretting not grabbing a bacon sarnie at the yard. The vending machine coffee he'd inhaled earlier wasn't cutting it, and his stomach growled its discontent as he pulled up outside a convenience store in Kirkstall. He wrestled 3 pallets of crisps and fizzy drinks through a narrow doorway, while the shopkeeper kept yelling at her assistant in rapid-fire Urdu. He didn't understand a word, but the assistant's sheepish grin told him everything. "Cheers, love," he said as he left. She smiled and handed him a bottle of water, which he gratefully accepted. At drop 6, a warehouse near Holbeck, Dave had to contend with a forklift driver who seemed to think he was auditioning for a Fast and Furious film. The lad zipped around the loading bay with wild abandon, narrowly missing Dave's toes more than once. "You trying to kill me, or is that just a bonus?" Dave shouted as he rolled a pallet onto the dock. The driver grinned sheepishly. "Sorry, mate. New toy." "You're not playing Mario Kart, son," Dave muttered as he climbed back into Daisy. By now, the rain had started. Just a fine drizzle at first, but it soon turned into a steady downpour. Leeds roads glistened with water, and pedestrians scurried under umbrellas. Dave hit drop 7 at a builder's yard, where a grumpy foreman waved him towards a muddy side lane. "You want me to reverse down there?" Dave asked, eyeing the narrow track with suspicion. "Aye," the foreman replied. "What's the problem? You've got mirrors, haven't you?" Dave bit back a retort and managed the maneuver without taking out a fence post. Just. By the time he reached his 9th drop, a cafe in the city centre, Dave was soaked through despite his jacket. The cafe owner insisted on chatting while Dave unloaded boxes of coffee beans and artisan bread. She wanted to know if he'd ever considered veganism. "I've considered it," Dave said, setting down a box. "And then I've considered bacon." The owner laughed, but Dave could tell she was a little offended. He shrugged it off. He wasn't about to give up sausage butties for lentils. The final drop was a supermarket in Armley. The unloading bay was a maze of parked vans and trolleys, and Dave was knackered by the time the last pallet was unloaded. As he climbed back into Daisy, he checked the clock. 4:15 p.m. Not bad considering. He radioed the depot to let them know he was done for the day. The dispatcher's voice crackled through the speaker. "Nice one, Dave. Swing by the yard and we'll get you sorted for tomorrow." Dave sighed and started the engine. Tomorrow meant 10 more drops, 10 more chances to get stuck in traffic, argue with forklift drivers, or fend off questions about his dietary choices. But for now, all he wanted was a hot shower, a cold pint, and maybe a steak pie. As he drove back through the rain-soaked streets of Leeds, Daisy hummed along, her engine steady and reassuring. Another day was done, and another 10 drops were conquered. And tomorrow? Well, tomorrow was future Dave's problem.